it will be time to check out the high angle weapons on the Phoenix. Now the Phoenix was already known to be excellent against other capital ships, but it did not perform really well against subcapitals, and I believe that the high angle weapons will change that. Now surprisingly, I don't see the basic info option when I click on the ship here, which is a little bit weird because all the other ships have it. So I guess I can't show you the ship stats from this position, but I know a trick, and I will do the trick in a moment. I'll just go to the market and find the ship over here. Now the stats and the skills haven't been changed, they're basically the same. The Phoenix does get a plus 4% shield resistance per level, which means that you can make this ship very tanky. It's basically the same bonus that we have on the Revelation, just a shield tank, which honestly is pretty nice. Okay, now on to the build. 354.02 DPS with the barreled capital missile launchers, or missile torpedoes. Now surprisingly, they have a pretty decent explosion velocity, explosion radius, which means that it should be able to hit subcapitals without a problem. In the medium slots I have quad webs and a scrambler. In the low slots, dual adaptives, dual batteries, dual missile guidance computers, and dual shield boosters. Basically the same setup that I run on the other high angle Dreadnoughts. Now for the rigs, the combat rigs are a little bit different. They are integrations, combat integrations, and I focused on missile damage application as well as missile damage. And I believe this combo is really solid. It definitely does make a huge difference on this ship. Now the other capital ships that I tested out don't have integrations, but I had to get the integrations for this ship just because the Phoenix did give me some issues at the start, but I solved that and now it's actually pretty solid. Now as for the implants, well, you have basically two choices for the implants, although there's only one missile implant for DPS, and that is the warhead charge. And here I'll show you the general units. Overall, the same setup that I did run on the other high angle weapon Dreadnoughts, and so far this seems to be working really well. Basically, I focused on the damage application on the missiles, and that is the most important aspect of missiles.
Undocking.
Okay, let's undock and let's see how the active stats on this ship look. Okay, let's stop the ship right here. The Phoenix is actually a pretty long ship, as you can see here. I always forget that this monster is huge. It's a very big ship. Okay, I think the modules should be... This looks nice. Okay, adaptives are on. And let me show you the active stats. 2 million hit points, 65, 65, 79 and 80% resistance. Of course, this is not a tank build, so you can't really expect a excellent tank with this build. It is a DPS focused build, and the DPS is 6.5 thousand. The missile range 60 kilometers. Okay, rate of fire 7.79. Overall, pretty solid. Now let's take a look at (184) and 60.59 You know, actually some pretty good velocity and a really good explosion radius. It definitely should do some damage to the smaller ships. Now the alpha damage on this ship is enormous, so you should technically be able to pop the smaller ships even without applying full damage, because you have about 80 to 100,000 alpha damage. So if the target is webbed and scrambled, they should go down in one hit. And of course you have the implant. You can change it into the precision mode or into the sniper mode. And of course you can switch to the explosive, kinetic, thermal or EM missiles depending on the damage type you prefer. In my case I like to use the thermal and explosive missiles. Thermal for shields, explosive missiles for armor and hull. That's how I usually run the missiles. And let's take a look at 30.29 is the explosion radius, which is honestly pretty solid. Well, I can't really complain about the Phoenix. The ship does seem to be working really well, but
Autopilot engaged.
as we all know,
Destination
or at
reached.
least I hope that we all know, stats on paper are one thing, but practical use, practical application is a whole different topic. So let's put this ship to the test and let's see how it will perform in combat. Now I am fairly sure that it will do really well, because I'm fairly sure that it has enough application.
Warp drive active.
Also, my apologies for switching the screens quite often. There is a wreck that I have to loot. There's a lot of wrecks over here, that's true. A lot of wrecks. So I have to go and find the correct wreck. There is a storyline mission in one of these wrecks. Oh, there is the storyline mission, okay. Nailed it from the first attempt, and the rest of the loot is not that impressive. Okay, let's go back to the big boat. And let's go back to the other big boat. So I have landed in the mission. Well, let's see how this thing works.
We're under attack.
So, siege mode enabled, and let's drop a couple missiles at the battleship. And also my apologies if I sound a little bit off today. I have been a bit sick in the last couple of days. So I still feel quite bad, but it will be better in, I guess, a couple of days. Well, there goes the battleship. That was quick. Now, here is where things get interesting with the Phoenix. Missiles always hit the target, so you don't have to worry about missing the target. For example, the Moros does miss quite often, the Revelation does miss quite often, the Negrifer does also miss quite often, but missiles always hit the target, and in order to apply most damage to the target, it is preferred that you have all webs and the scrambler applied. That way the target will be slowed down enough so that the effect of the missiles kicks in better. Because I've noticed when I shoot at targets that are not webbed, especially frigates and cruisers, sometimes it takes a couple hits to shoot them down. But once they are webbed, the target does go down fairly fast. So that's one thing to consider. You can also technically use target painters. However, I don't really like to use target painters because I find that the extra web can help if you get tackled. Most hunters, especially if they are aiming to tackle capital ships, the tackle ship orbits at 0, because most of them think that they don't use the high angle weapons. Although, besides using high angle weapons, you need to have tracking computers or missile guidance computers, webs, and a scrambler in order to ensure that you hit the target. I have seen couple of dreadnoughts that died using the high angle weapons, and most of them did not use webs, most of them did not use tracking computers, which in return means that they were a fairly easy target. So it doesn't matter what capital ship you fly, but for high angle weapons, having tracking computers is a must have if you want to hit targets. You will not have issues hitting big targets, that's true, but the smaller targets are going to be a challenge to hit if you don't use tracking computers. Now, I like how tanky this ship is. The Phoenix is definitely on the tanky side, although not as tanky as the Neglifar or not as tanky as the Revelation. The Phoenix has a very interesting place in the game at the moment. A lot of players use the Phoenix as a anti-capital ship because of its enormous alpha damage. The Phoenix with the normal capital missiles can do somewhere about 250,000 to 350,000 alpha. So if you drop a couple of these ships, you can easily pop the average battery fit Dreadnought. However, if the Dreadnought has a trunk resistance build, then the trick will not work, because the trunk resistance tank will easily survive such enormous alpha damage. All that has been already tested. That's why I prefer resistance over active armor repair. And in most cases, I don't really need more than one capacitor battery. Especially after getting almost nearly maxed out skills for the Revelation, I still don't need to use more than one capacitor battery, because the Revelation does not run the armor repairs at all time. I think I repair about 250,000 armor with my 2 armor repairs every cycle, which is more than 80% of total armor. So I can easily leave the armor to be damaged to about 20% and then just roll one cycle and the armor will be full again.
Enemy ships detected. We're under attack.
However, in a
We're under
big
attack.
fight, quad batteries are nice. However, quad batteries means that your tank will not be the best. After all, you sacrifice tank to have a lot more capacitor. In most cases it works, but I personally just like to go full resistance, because that way I can easily survive a blob if it ever happens. But so far I haven't had. Actually, I haven't had the reason to use my damage control on the revelation up until this moment. And I honestly thought that I would be using that a lot more often, but I guess I was wrong. And there is also the question, what is my next primary ship? Well, to be 100% honest with you, I have no idea. At one point, I mean, we have the developers telling us that they are going to be releasing new conventional ships, new sub-capital ships, so I kind of want to fly the new ships that are going to be released, but at the same time I also want to do something fresh, a fresh ship to fly, but at the moment not many ships are falling into the being excited category. I guess that's the consequence of me flying all of the ships. At one point you will fly all of them, and then no ship will feel new. So that's why I wait for the new ships to arrive. Hopefully they are tier 2 cruisers and tier 2 frigates. If we get tier 2 frigates, I will fly the Wolf or Jaguar. I'll fly these things, and that's all it will take for me to become a frigate pilot. Those are some of my favorite hulls from Evoline, and if I can get to fly them here, I will fly them, and will probably keep flying them for a very long time. Same can be said about the tier 2 cruisers. They should be pretty good and pretty fun, of course. Now back to the Phoenix over here. The Phoenix is clearing this really well so far. I like that the missiles slap up to 50,000 on the battleships. That's much more than the alpha damage on the Revelation and on the Moros. So the Phoenix has great potential to smash gate camps. One thing that I really like about the high angle weapons, you can now pull off stunts like in Evil Line, where you can easily bait a whole fleet with a capital ship, and when they aggro, you just wipe them out. Because, well, you have tracking and they basically fly into your trap. That's one thing that you can do with the high angle weapons, and it makes things a lot more exciting, because you don't know if that capital ship has the high angle weapons or if they have the normal capital turrets. If they have the high angle weapons, well, you will know if they don't shoot until the whole fleet lands. They will usually start shooting when the whole fleet lands. That's when the Dreadnought can do maximum possible damage. And with the 75% Evor resistance,
Enemy ships detected.
it will be a bit more difficult to
We're under
reduce
attack.
the turret performance or missile performance on the capital ship.
We're under attack.
So that gives me a lot of ideas. The one thing that's problematic at the moment is the price for the high angle weapons. they literally cost a kidney. And so let me just take a look at the market for a second. Of course, on a different screen, the Imperial Navy lasers cost 1 billion per piece. Yeah, that's a bit too expensive for my taste. Meanwhile, the normal capital beam lasers, I mean the capital pulse lasers, 6 million. The price difference is absolutely insane. Over 1,000% difference in price between the normal capital turrets and the high angle turrets. So I hope that they drop from a hauler at one point. I mean, I got C-type armor repairs, capital C-type armor repairs for free. Basically, a Neros 2 walked in and, well, when the Neros 2 walked in, the Neros 2 got yeeted. Because that's what we usually do. We blow up ships for fun. And the question that players always like to ask me, how do I make my ISK? Nowadays, in the last 6 months or so, all of my ISK is coming from purely PvP. Camps, roams, being lucky at some moments, but 100% of all the ISK that I made in the last 6 months, in the last year or so, was from PvP. And I don't really plan to change that. It's been going really well. Lately I started to do the pay-per-kill contracts and basically dominated 2 times so far. But did have to take a little break from the pay-per-kill contracts because I got a little bit sick and I wasn't really able to focus on that much. Basically was only able to camp and well, still made some ISK by camping, which is fine. I'm okay. I'm okay if I miss a couple of the contract. I already have a lot of ISK, so it's not really a big issue. The Phoenix is holding out really well. The shield looks to be in a good shape. And I'm slowly clearing all the waves. But overall, quite a enjoyable experience flying the Phoenix for PvE. I guess it gives the Phoenix a bit more use, because the Phoenix was also classified as the most useless capital, although at the same time it had a very unique role, but players wanted to be able to use the ship for missions or encounters, and now they can actually do it. Now, I said this with the Moros video, I'll say it with the Phoenix video. If you plan to use a Dreadnought for ratting or for missions, well, I would not be doing low stack missions because you will be swarmed very quickly by a big fleet. So yeah, just because it runs really well for missions, I would still not use it for missions. However, in nullsec, In nullsec, it's a whole different story. If you have a safe pocket, if you have camera alts watering the pipes, or if you have a big fleet at your disposal, basically if you're totally safe in your pocket, and if you have a good warning system if there is a fleet coming your way, then you can easily use the Phoenix and the other capital ships for missions. I mean, for ratting in nullsec. I know the fever is kicking in, so I might mistake some words. Yeah, my apologies for that. It happens. But yeah,
Enemy
stick
ships
to
detected.
100% safety.
We're under attack.
After all, once you siege up with the revelation, I mean,
We're under
once you siege
attack.
up with the Phoenix, you are not going to be able to move for 2 minutes, and the same thing can be applied to basically all the other Dreadnoughts, because once you siege up, you can't really move for 2 minutes. The siege will have a cooldown. Now, the reason why I mentioned the revelation, I mean, you already know that I plan to fly the Chemosh, and I forgot the name of the Gurista Pirates Dreadnought. They have a capital ship as well. Basically, it is made on the design of the Phoenix hull. So, if your long-term goal in capital ships is a faction Dreadnought, then the Gurista Pirate Dreadnought is definitely going to be a very nice choice. Now, what are the potential stats going to look like for these new ships? Well, you can expect something very similar to the stats that we have on the faction carriers. Basically, they will retain the pirate faction bonuses. Which means you can expect the Gurista Pirate Dreadnought to be super tanky. And with the high angle weapons, that thing will be very nasty. Especially if you plan to crash gate camps with it. Which is a very nice thing to do in these ships. So right now you have like two options for faction Dreadnoughts. You have the Chemosh or you have the Gurista Pirate Dreadnought. In my case, I will go with the Chemosh because I just love Blood Raiders. The one faction that basically never failed me so far. However, the only thing that failed was me. Each time I lose a ship, well, I blame myself for it because that's the right thing to do. Can't get better at the game if you don't accept the mistakes that you do while playing the game, and I've learned that like 10 years ago, or maybe even before 10 years ago. I don't know, it was a long time ago, that's for sure. So I'm quite excited for the new ships. Like, honestly, I haven't been excited for new ships in a very long time. I mean, at first when the capital ships were released, I wasn't really. I don't remember being very excited for them until I started flying the Revelation. I think the Revelation did change my opinion on the capital ships, because back then I had a completely different feel on these ships. I thought that they were basically useless. I thought that they were too slow and too much of a easy target. Well, now that's not really the case, is it? The capital ships are surprisingly very good at their own thing. And one beauty of Eve is that you can make anything work with your ship. Doesn't matter if it's a frigate, cruiser, battleship, capital ship. As long as you can make it work, it will work. So the only thing that's going to be a limiting factor is players' own, I guess, creativity. I have seen some very creative builds in Alliance chat, and honestly, some of them are really good. Unfortunately, I also seen a lot of cursed builds, mostly from the targets that I shoot down, but that's a topic for a different video. I still don't understand why there are so many hybrid tanks. It's a question that I personally don't understand. Why are there so many hybrid tanks in the game? Yesterday I have destroyed a Mother Trainer, which is, by the way, a very rare ship. And shockingly, the Mother Trainer had a hybrid tank, shield plus armor, which is, again, like I mentioned before many times, very cursed, and you should not build the ship like that. The Mother is one of the tankiest cruisers in the game. The tier 6 Mother can tank a lot of damage. It's a very fun to fly ship that unfortunately has a bad reputation because there are so many bad builds floating around with that ship, which is sad. Perhaps I should fly the Mauler just to show you how ridiculously broken tanky that thing is. And perhaps I'll actually run a storyline mission with it, because why not? I'm fairly sure I can pull out something very interesting with the Mauler. I still find that the cruisers are the best option for storyline missions. You can do them with frigates as well, which is a even safer option, but I'll explain more of that in one of the next videos. Okay, well, this little mission has been completed. How is the performance of the Phoenix? Well, surprisingly, it performs really well. I can't complain. I really cannot complain about the Phoenix. This thing does perform really well. I expected its performance to be not as good because capital missiles are just weird, but I was wrong. The Phoenix is actually really solid. So if you have a Phoenix, and if your long-term goal is the Gurista Pirate Dreadnought, then the Phoenix is definitely going to be a nice skipping stone. After all, you will need this ship to produce the faction Dreadnought. Same thing applies to the Chemosh, and same thing applies to the other faction capital ships. So, I really hope that this video was helpful. I really hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that I could help you at building your own ship, in this case building your own Phoenix.
Accepted.
And well, with that being said, I'll go and sleep a little bit to sleep off this fever that I have. Hopefully it will be gone by tomorrow. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.